Maybe you don't know.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to build. 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 This time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I am your host, Chris Hampton. Welcome to episode 181 of the Power Company Podcast, brought to you by PowerCompanyClimbing.com. The snows have descended upon us here in Lander, Wyoming, which has put at least a temporary end to my outdoor bouldering season. However, has massively helped the wildfire situation here in the Mountain West, which is a great thing. And I'm pretty excited to get back into the machine shop. It's been a long bouldering season, and I'm really proud of how it went down. 2020, I've done as many double-digit boulders as I've done in all the prior years combined. So I'm feeling really good about my climbing, about how my training has gone. I've simplified it drastically, and it's just gotten better and better. And getting back into the machine shop, my first two sessions, I was able to first try, repeat old projects, which tells me I'm at a good place. So I'm excited for this coming training season and for the days I can get out in the winter. I've got big projects, so I'm excited to spend some time in the gym getting stronger and some time outside working out the moves to set myself up for a really solid spring. One big announcement before we jump into this episode. Just recently, Lana and I hosted a trivia night with Rocktoberfest, the annual Red River Gorge Climbers Coalition festival. And it was so much damn fun that we decided to continue that. We're hoping to do it monthly. It is going to cost $5 per person to join. There will be prizes, which will be announced soon. And all of the profits will go directly to a different organization each month that we choose that's helping build the climbing community in a smart, diverse way. And the first month we've chosen We Climb, which is a group newly started up in Chattanooga that's looking to get underprivileged youth outside and into climbing, and just to mentor them in a really responsible way, which I think is a really brilliant approach to growing this community the way that so many of us want to see it grown. And I had an amazing conversation with Kendall, who started We Climb just yesterday. So we're really excited to be able to support his organization. It's $5 to join the trivia game. You can give more if you like. Like I said, all of that money is going to go straight to We Climb to help them out with their mission. The trivia game will be on November 11th at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And we will all be on a Zoom call together. You'll be playing the game on your mobile phone, all climbing based. Of course, with the Power Company podcast, lean toward the final round so that any of you podcast fans can take the lead right there at the last minute, win the prizes. All right, there is a sign-up link for that trivia right there in your show notes in your pocket supercomputer. Now, today's guest is Brandon Belcher. Brandon is a climber, mostly boulderer, based out of Atlanta, Georgia, who I first met in El Paso over tacos when I was about to interview Brittany Levitt for the podcast. And Brandon stopped by here in Lander for a session in the machine shop and to sit down and have a conversation. I'm actually surprised I was able to pull him away from playing with my cat long enough to have a conversation, but I'm glad I did. This is a great example of getting to know someone and forming a relationship through a deep conversation and really, really learning about that person and their ideas and their views. And I think that you will get to know Brandon and enjoy this time with him the same as I did. So let's get into it.
As a black man in this country, you have to have your guard up all the time. There's no way that a community this insular, this white, didn't have these issues. There's just no way.
This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
It's weird, like, cause when I was younger, I was really scrawny kid, like really scrawny. But I used to ride my bike all the time. That was pretty much my only like exercise I got. Very scrawny kid, and my dad, he was so obsessed with me, like being like this, like the tough kid, playing football, playing basketball, all of like these like team sports, and I just never wanted to do it. I was like kind of wimpy. I wasn't very competitive. I wasn't very aggressive, and like my dad was kind of like this stereotypical, and like rest in peace, Dad, but kind of like stereotypical like hard man.
Yeah.
Toughen up. Men don't cry or boys don't cry. We never really like hugged much. We never really said like I love you much. Like none of that. That was too tender. And it just was not a very competitive kid. I have always been more into like individual sports, like where I'm going after like PRs, or like I'm more or less like competing against myself. So I ran like track and field. That was like my first like intro into sports. When was that? Like middle school and a little bit of high school. And I would have ran more in high school, but really figured out that I wasn't all that fast after a while. Like I'm super flat foot and just was not the fastest ever. And B, I hated my track coaches. They were all like football coaches who basically use track and field to keep their football athletes conditioned during the spring.
Did they have the same sort of attitude that your dad did?
Oh yeah. Oh, always in your face. I remember, especially when they were talking to the women athletes, they used to call them bitches. They used to really just dig into them like all the time. But those girls could run fast though. I mean, our girls track team at my high school in Roswell High during that time, they were killing it. But yeah, they kind of had that same attitude, and it just really kind of killed it for me. Also, my pole vault coach.
You were a pole vaulter.
Yeah,
I was a pole vaulter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. I was okay. I was okay.
Yeah.
My freshman year was mostly like the pole vault coach teaching you technique, and then like sophomore, junior, senior year, you were mostly doing a lot of competitions and really kind of going hardcore at it. And I really wanted to pursue pole vaulting like primarily, but the sprint / football coaches, like they want, you can't just do pole vault, you can't just do high jump, you can't just do long jump, you got to sprint. Especially because I was pretty good at the 4x1. Like I was the second. No, I was usually the third leg in the 4x1, which is the curve. For whatever reason, running straights I was super slow, but the curves I was pretty good. Wow. So they used to make me run the 4x1s and the 4x4s at least. But I just wanted the pole vault. Well, pole vault coach ended up leaving, and I think we just got rid of the pole vault program in general. And I was like, fuck this. So that's when I got into fencing.
How does one go from track to fencing?
So
you said it all casual, like, so I just moved to fencing. No big deal.
So I believe the year that I was running track and field, my school had started a fencing club because my government teacher was good friends with this woman named Kathy, and I can't remember her last name, but her name was Kathy, and she was the founder of the Dunwoody Fencing Club. And so she would come in like once a week and bring in all this extra gear and stuff like that. And anyone who was interested and want to learn how to fence, you put on the mask and the jacket and stuff, and you learn like general technique. Well, after that year, it was really Kathy and a couple of the other like fencing clubs around the Metro Atlanta area. They were able to really start coaching up kids in various high schools on like how to fence. Yeah. So it was the Georgia High School Fencing Association, the GHSFA, I think it was. And so I think it started at like 5 schools, and now I think it's like 15 schools in like the metro Atlanta area that all like fence competitively with one another. And so by the time I was like done with like track and field, the 5 schools were already competing like pretty competitively, and I had friends in my high school who were fencing. And so there's this one dude, this jock named Jameson Kernick. He was one of my good friends. He was fencing, and he was kind of like the hot shot of the fencing league, of the high school fencing league. He was a former football player, super athletic, always good at like everything that he did. He was like, blonde hair, blue eyed, really handsome looking, tall dude, like good at everything. Total asshole. Love the kid. Total asshole though. And I remember, and I can't remember when we had this bet, but I was like, if I join the fencing league, I will beat you one day. I will actually beat you one day. And so I joined, and I remember like really like liking it, but it didn't really click until I went to my first tournament, and I almost made it to the final. So the way that it was set up, you would have like a pool round. And so everyone was kind of randomly placed in like various pools, and it's like first to 5 touches. And so based on how you did during the pool round, you would get ranked into the elimination round. So, if you won all of your pool like matches, and you had like a good like point differential, so like you touched more than you got touched, then typically you were ranked higher, and you would usually get a bye in the elimination round, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, this is like, there would be anywhere from like 50 to close to 80 like boys.
Yeah, sounds serious.
It was pretty serious. It was huge. I mean, I was there all day from like 7 a.m. until like 5 p.m. on a Saturday, like fencing. My first tournament, I got like 16th. I got knocked out in the round of 16 against this kid named Kyle Rolla. Never forget him, because he had these like the girl fencers would cheer every single time he got a point. It really pissed me off. And then I lost against this kid, and that's when it snapped, and that's when I got hooked. And I was like, I need to like, because I knew I could have beaten him, but it was the mental aspect and those girls teasing me that really kind of like screwed me up.
Yeah.
So that's when I got hooked, and that's when I started like really kind of taking it seriously.
Yeah. I love that attitude.
Yeah. It was a weird thing, and that, like I said, I wasn't that competitive, but that really bothered me.
I think you were competitive. I think that's what competitive is.
So where are we going with this?
Did you beat Jameson?
Oh yeah. Not only, I would beat him in like practice and stuff like that, because typically practice is like where you're trying different techniques and you're trying different things, and it doesn't really matter if you win or lose. It's not that competitive, but I rarely faced him in an actual tournament. It was pretty rare when we were in the same like pool, like in the same kind of like pool bracket where people were getting ranked.
Yeah.
And it was even more rare that we ran into each other in the elimination round. But I think we did like a couple of times, and I lost against him. It was my first year. My second year on the team, I remember making it to the finals. So the finals were basically the top 8. So it was like the round of 64, 32, 16. And then top 8, because there are so many people, typically top 8 would usually get a medal, right? But like no one cares unless you get top 3, let's be real. So I made it to the final 4, and I had to fence Jameson to get to the finals. And in the elimination round, it's first to 15, and we got to a 14-14. And I forget the French term when you get 14-14, but it's like a thing, like you're supposed to like salute your opponent and things like that and like get ready. And he had a signature move. I think he called the Flying Dragon, which was like this really douchey. And like I said, he's really athletic.
Come on, Jameson.
Oh, I hope he hears this episode later on.
Flying Dragon.
So he's really athletic, and so he was very fast, really, but he wasn't the most technically proficient fencer, but he was very athletic and very fast, and that was his advantage. And admittedly, it was mine as well, but I had a bit more what was called point control, where if I wanted to aim somewhere and hit it, I could do it.
Yeah.
And so he used to have this thing, the Flying Dragon, and he kind of would do like this like dip and like a jump as he lunged at you. And I had seen this move a million times before,
You knew it.
and I tagged him, and I stole his silver medal basically. So I fenced. I eliminated him out of the round of 4. He had the fence for third place, which I think he won.
Uh-huh.
Oddly enough, he wasn't mad. Normally, he got really pissed about stuff like that, but he wasn't mad. He actually shook my hand. He actually coached me pretty well in the final against this one kid named Harry Sullivan, who was like, this kid named like Ashkabuzi, Houston Fullerton, and Harry Sullivan. Those were like, they're like the big dicks. Like they were like the best fencers in Georgia at like 16, 17 years old.
Wow.
And so I had to fence Harry Sullivan in the finals and just got obliterated. I think I lost 15-11, which is better than I thought I would have performed. But
Did fencers, like, in high school, did they hang out after fencing? Like, did you go out and hang out with other fencers? Was it a social thing?
yeah, we used to. So
It
the high
sounds
school
so serious and so proper that I'm just curious if that can even happen.
in the South, it's like more recreational. Like in the North, it's very like proper and prim, and like you actually go to like a facility that's like the club's facility, and like they have like their own
yeah.
strips, and probably they have their own bar, and they have their own
Right.
spa and showers and shit. In the South, you know, you make a strip out of some tape, and you're playing in like a local, or no, you're not playing, but you're practicing at like a local church. Or like
Right.
we had like a couple of facilities that were like strictly for the teams, but you're mostly playing in like, or practicing in like a church or just like some building that someone's like willing to loan you out for like a certain period. So in the South, like it wasn't all that prim and proper or like, you know,
Gotcha.
bougie or anything like that. But yeah, we hung out a good bit. Yeah.
Is there a way to continue fencing after high school if you're not like, if you don't want to continue into college and you're not getting a scholarship and you're not going to be an Olympic fencer? Is there like a fencing league for
yeah.
adults?
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
So you would. Oh, nice. I want to pet that cat.
Yeah,
really
she
bad.
had a grasshopper.
You can pet her whenever you want.
So of course, like NCAA schools, especially like Ivy League schools, they have like their own like fencing sort of like divisions and things like that. But the American fencing scene is very serious. So you would have like various events. Well, let me break it down like this. There are certain rankings that fencers like make. So it's ranked from A through E, and then you're unranked if you're below E. Depending on A, the number of fencers, and B, the fencers who are in a tournament, like, or I guess the ranking of the fencers in a certain tournament, it determines like, it can determine like how you could be placed into a certain rank, or a certain rank depending on where you finish. So like, say for instance, if there's like a really big tournament going on of like 64 fencers, and there's like a buttload of like A fencers who are fencing there. If you were to finish in the top 8, there's a good chance that you would be like bumped up to like B level fencer or something like that. Or if you were to win it, for instance, you would be bumped up to A level fencer. I think like,
It's amazing to me that there are enough fencers to have A through E.
Dude,
because
you
I would
should-
think there'd be like 2 per category.
Oh, no.
A through E.
You should see nationals, dude. It's insane. I mean, I went to nationals for a team event my senior year in high school, and I mean, we filled out. It's like the Georgia World Congress Center size like building, just full of like all these strips.
Wow.
And
I had
it's
no
just
idea this
thousands
world
of people.
existed.
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Why didn't you continue?
Oh man, it's expensive. It's expensive.
In
yeah.
college.
Yeah. Once mom kind of stopped paying for some things, it got a bit more difficult. But also, the team at Emory, a lot of them were foil fencers, and I really just didn't like foil fencing at all.
Right.
So,
What did you move into to like satisfy this competitive, non-competitive spirit that you have?
drinking and smoking and playing music.
Like many of us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was playing like a decent amount of music and stuff like that, but in my junior year in college, I met a friend of a friend who was really into like Muay Thai. And so we used to do a ton of like calisthenics training.
Yeah.
And mostly like a ton of like body weight and calisthenics training. And then like there would be some sparring like incorporated in there as well. And so I really got into that. Especially because like the friend of a friend of a friend, this dude named Talib, he was a former like linebacker for the Georgia Tech football team, and this dude was a freak of nature. I mean, like 250, all muscle, doing like handstand push-ups and like backflips and shit like that. And so I was like, oh, dude, he was like freaking Goku from like Dragon Ball Z, and I was like, dude, I want to be like Goku. I want to be like super ripped. So we used to like train like super hard, doing like all these different just like movements and twists and stuff, and we would just train like anywhere from an hour to like 4 straight hours, just grueling shit. I mean, I don't think I've ever been in such good shape in my life. Just grueling work. And then basically, once we were done, we'd hit up the Chinese buffet and, just like eat for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, I mean, literally so up until like my junior year in college, I was about 145 pounds. And then within...
At what height?
My current height.
The height you are now,
Yeah,
145.
I was 40 pounds less than what I am now. Just a freaking beanpole. And I bulked up. In 8 months, I bulked up to about 175, 180.
Wow.
Just got big, or just bigger, I guess. I'm not really that big of a dude, ultimately. I'm big for a climber, but I'm not really that big of a guy.
Did calisthenics lead you into climbing?
Mm-hmm.
I know several people have kind of found it through that avenue.
The instructor, who was Talib's father, they ended up moving. And I never really could find anyone it was 2 different things. I was like underemployed or unemployed at the time. So going to another school just wasn't financially possible. Like a lot of these places are charging minimum like $150 a month, and I just couldn't afford that.
Right.
And B, I wasn't able to find an instructor that really resonated with me well. And so I was doing a lot of just like self-training at home. I would be training anywhere from 45 minutes to 3 hours just by myself. And this is hard to do. And so I went to Stone Summit, Atlanta, off of 85 with the girl I was dating at the time, and learned how to top rope belay and just climbed a little bit over there. We went like a couple more times after that. She moved to Germany to go to grad school. We broke up. And then I went to the gym a couple more times, mostly to use like their weight room and like their pull-up bars and their yoga room to do calisthenics and stuff. And it just turns out that like, well, if I got a membership and I went 3 times a week, it was just worth my money.
Sure.
And then, I like already knew how to top rope belay. So I'd use like the auto belay with the rental harness. And then like, oh, man, these rental shoes suck. So I found like, I got a pair of like red Chili's for like half off, and climbed in like those red Chili's for a bit, and then eventually got my own harness that was on sale, and got in. Just started like climbing as a way to, like, I was like, well, I'm spending this money for a climbing gym. I'm gonna climb too, but I was also like spending a lot of time upstairs just doing calisthenics.
What was this timeline like? You say like eventually I got my own harness, I got my own shoes. What was the timeline like from coming to the gym?
I graduated college in 2011, was like basically unemployed for 2 years. It was impossible finding work back then. So I think it was like 2013 was when I got my 2012, 2013 was when I got my membership. And then like probably I did not like those rental shoes. So I got my shoes like a month like
Fuck
into
the rental
it.
shoes.
Oh, they're awful. Those Matt Rock rental shoes are awful. I got my shoes like about a month into getting my membership. And then probably a harness like another month, because I was using, like, you can use the rental harness on top rope. It's not a big deal.
Are you still using the same harness you got back then?
Yeah. I don't sport climb enough to be that concerned.
I wondered.
So I started climbing a bit more. I was mostly doing top rope then. Probably about 6 months into climbing, I met some people from the Atlanta Outdoor Club and went on a couple climbing trips with them out in places like Lita and Chattanooga. We went to Sand Rock in Alabama, like Currahee in North Georgia and stuff like that. They kind of taught me how to like clean, and that was like my first time like touching real rock, and it's mostly like top rope. Um, but I was 24 at the time, and most people who I was climbing with were like 45 or 50, and I was like, I gotta get with some people who are like close to my age. Kind of like met a few people around my age, like my friend Julia and Clint and all of them, like Stephanie and Chris. Continued to top rope with them. I got my job at Apple Retail, which if anyone's ever worked retail, your hours are like all over the place. And so it became really hard to find like a belay partner. So then that's when I really got into bouldering, because I could just show up at the gym wherever I wanted to and just start bouldering in there. And then once I hit my first V5, it was like I hit my first V5 and the band that I was playing in like broke up at the same time. And it's like that super jilted feeling that you get when like, your girlfriend breaks up with you or something. You're just like, oh, I'm not going to date for a while. Like, fuck this. I'm just going to stay single. It was kind of like that with like the band stuff too. I was like, I need to take a break. This was super stressful. It was a really bad breakup. I just need to take a break from this. Like, also like promoters were like stealing money from you and stuff like that. I just got burned out. And so it was like V5 happened, band broke up, I got my first crash pad, and it was just like, that was it from there.
Over.
Yeah. So
it's that competitive spirit.
I guess so.
Now you need the V6. You needed it immediately. I gotta have it.
It took a minute.
As it should.
It took a minute.
It should.
It took a minute. V5 and V7, I can remember being like two distinct like plateaus for me. Especially outdoor V7. But then once I got the first outdoor V7, it seemed to just like happen one after another. V8 also was weird. V8 was that took me a while, I feel like. Actually, no. I got my first V8 after about 3 years of climbing. It's this one called it's called Booney Project at Rocktown, and it's totally a V4. It's like the stand start is a V2 called, I think it's not called Bob Barker. I think it's not Price is Right either. I can't remember the stand start, but the stand start is a really cool V2 boulder problem, and then the V8 is the sit variation. It was a total joke. And I remember I topped it out, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, I got my first V8. I was like, oh, man, that's when I really kind of stopped caring about grades after a while. But yeah, I remember, V5 and V7, I remember those being really hard plateaus.
Do you have any idea when you first identified as a climber? When did you say, I am a climber?
I feel like that's hard, because sometimes I still don't feel like I'm much of a climber. Like, I'm very much a weekend warrior. I'm very much like a gym rat. But maybe like a couple of years ago, maybe.
Do you think like recreational tennis players take vacations to play tennis in another place? Just out of curiosity.
That's a good question. That's a good point you make. I do remember my first trip at the Red River Gorge. I think I had been climbing for like 2 years at that point, 2 or 3 years, and I think that's when I remember that there was something kind of special about this sort of activity and community. Like you said, like recreational tennis players or recreational whatever, they're not traveling around the world or even the U.S. like doing what they do. And also just the scenery. I mean, the scenery and the activity and just like being outside. I do remember that being like a distinct moment where I was like, yeah, I feel like this is something I want to stick with for a while. But excuse me. But I remember, I guess compared to most sports, right? You have you have like the pros and you have like just there's no one else, right? You know, every like
Right.
professional football players and basketball players,
Yep.
and like no one gives a shit about the amateurs. Like no one really does. But I feel like climbing is very unique in that sense, where it's like, you know, there's a whole like culture to this that's so much more than just sport.
Yep.
It's so much. It's about community more than anything else. And I guess like skiing and snowboarding and like kayaking and other outdoor recreational sports are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this climbing was the one that I got into, but yeah, the red, maybe that red trip was when I was like, yeah, I guess I'm a climber now. I guess this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you are. I'm glad you're doing it. I'm glad you're here right now.
I'm glad to be here.
I think the climbing community needs people who think as deeply about it as you do. When you fell in love with climbing, when you decided you were a climber, and when you were just telling me about it, it started mostly about the activity, about the places, about the things you see, and less about the people. And for me, it was the opposite. For me, it was the people, partly because I needed people at that time in my life. You know, I needed a new community and to get away from the community I was in. But I'm curious, with the steam that this movement has picked up and the sort of and I'm using this term the way I see it, not necessarily how you see it, but the unveiling of a lot of racist attitudes in the climbing community that frankly surprised me more than I should have been surprised. How are you feeling now about the community? Is there hope? Do you still love it? How are you feeling?
It's a mixed bag, honestly. There's a lot of hope that I have, like especially after seeing a lot of the positive feedback from like the podcast episode, the For Love of Climbing episode that I have with Kathy,
which is a great episode,
Thank
and
you.
everyone should listen to.
Thank you.
If they haven't.
The episode with me, Karima, and Kai, seeing like the positive feedback and just how it resonates so well within the community, that gives me hope. Seeing how a lot of people are at least seem like they're willing to listen, or they're wanting to like learn and kind of grow grow in perspective a bit, or at least kind of like just listen.
Yeah.
That's been pretty, that's given me some hope. But you know, and we've all done this, like you dig into like an Instagram comments thread,
right?
You know, Daniel Woods posts a Black Power sign saying he's like for BLM, and then it's just like what seems like an endless number of comments of just like scrutiny and mockery.
Same with Alex Magos, and Williams,
and to see that level of pushback and also this level of toxicity within that pushback, it's pretty disheartening. So I go back and forth between like feeling like both ways about it. And as a Black man in this country, you have to have your guard up all the time. So like coming into this community, I knew that this was a thing that had to exist, like these sort of mindsets. I knew that was a thing that had to be present. There's no way that a community this insular, this like white, didn't have these issues. There's just no way. And so I already have my guard up in a lot of ways. Like I really, 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 really vet the people that I climb with. Like I say hey to you at the gym, that don't mean we're friends.
Right.
Like if I say hey to you at the gym, we're associates at best. And like, but I'm not climbing outside with you, dude. I don't know what you're about. I don't know what you believe in. I don't know, your morals or ethics. So I've already had my guard up for a while, and I already knew what I was getting myself into being in a community that was this insular. Yeah. So
was fencing when you were involved a mostly white sport?
Fencing is surprisingly diverse.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy. Especially in the international circuit, like there's a lot of black fencers in Europe.
Wow, cool.
Especially on the French team. It's like pretty much the entire French fencing team is black. It's like pretty crazy, actually. And in the South, a lot of Asians, decent amount of Latinx folks, some black folks like sprinkled here and there. I mean, it's mostly largely white, don't get me wrong, but I think because fencing in the South was very recreational and like you'd see like a wide range of people from various demographics and like, you know, whether it be racial, like different racial demographics or like different like income like brackets and stuff like that. It was like a wide mix of people. But yeah, it was much more diverse than climbing. I would say my middle school years in Texas, because I was one of my middle school years in Texas really taught me like what being othered really felt like. Because my 6th grade year, I was one of 3 black kids in my entire middle school. And in my 7th grade year, I was the only black kid in my middle school. No, that's not true. I was the only black boy in my middle school. I think there was 2 other black girls the year before me. So I had already had experience with kind of being like that token black kid in the scene. So I kind of knew what to expect. Or maybe not to expect, but I kind of knew what it already felt like. And I wasn't afraid to kind of like put myself in various scenes or atmospheres or ecosystems, whatever you want to call them. Like I wasn't afraid to put myself in these certain like environments that were very insular because I already kind of knew what that had kind of felt like.
Right.
And in a sense, I'm appreciative of it because I knew what to look for. In people, I guess, to like protect myself, I guess, and like
right, you know who's safe.
Yeah. So.
And you're starting to climb in Atlanta, which is a pretty diverse metropolitan area, and climbing was still extremely white.
Oh yeah, we have a lot of Asians at our gym. Mostly because that section of Atlanta, like where that gym was at in Norcross, it's like a very large Vietnamese population, and then just northeast in Duluth, a very large Korean population. So a lot of Vietnamese, a lot of Korean climbers, some Latinx folks here and there. I was the only black dude for like 3 or 4 years. Every now and again, someone else would like show up, but you know, I think they were just there to just like session for a couple of days, but. Yeah, I was the only black dude in the gym. It was me and Emily Taylor, the coach.
Right.
And that was pretty much it. And which is pretty crazy because it's like Atlanta, Georgia, like
right.
The home of contemporary like rap music now. Like you can't hear a rap song. Hell, you can't even hear a country song on the radio without hearing like an freaking 808 beat in the background and like some sort of Atlanta influence, right? So it's like the blackest city in the United States, yet it's just me in this gigantic gym. So yeah, it's pretty. It says a lot, I think.
And I'm not asking you at all to like give us the whole reason. But why do you think that is? Why do you think even in a city like Atlanta, it was still such a white sport?
I think well, it's always like there's multiple layers to this. I think with a lot of outdoor recreational activities, you are participating in some of the most rural backwoods areas in the United States, where typically people are a bit more conservative leaning, and they might have certain attitudes about race relations and things like that. And this isn't to say if you're a conservative, you're a racist or anything like that, but contemporary conservatism is kind of founded on, taking the old Dixiecrat, Democrats over to the Republican Party, which Dixiecrats were racist Democrats. They wanted to sustain white supremacy as long and as best as they could. So a lot of like the language, a lot of coded like dog whistle language that they use to recruit those people over, I think definitely it persists today. That sort of like attitude, that perspective, and that philosophy exists today in the modern conservative movement. So,
and I think has also bled into the children of that movement, even if they have other ideas, if they believe other things, they're still steeped in that tradition.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's hard to kind of unlearn what your parents
whether
taught
we
you, right?
like it or not.
Right. I agree with that. You're in some of the most kind of ultra conservative rural areas in the United States, and Black people are well aware of that. And so I think that in and of itself is like a huge deterrent as to why Black people aren't really getting out there and doing things like kayaking or climbing or like even camping or like hiking and stuff like that. Because it's like, shit, I go to North Georgia to go to Rocktown, and it's like there's stars and bars everywhere. Yeah. And that's the Confederate flag is a huge indicator that like chances are I don't really belong at this person's house, or like I definitely can't be knocking on your door. Heaven forbid I'm going to Lafayette, Georgia, where Rocktown is at, and I get a breakdown.
Car breaks down, sure.
Like, thank God I got AAA. I'm just gonna sit in my car because I can't go knocking on someone's door.
And who knows with that AAA driver,
right? But like I can't go knock on someone's door in Lafayette, Georgia, or Steele, Alabama, or even parts of Chat, because I mean, hell, there have been countless stories of Black people who have been stranded on the side of the road trying to knock on someone's door,
right? And
either they get shot by the homeowner or by the police.
And just as a challenge to the people listening, imagine how many times you or friends that have broken down in these areas, either in the Southeast, in the New River Gorge, and all of these backwoods, rural areas. Every single one of us knows someone who's broken down there, and we've had to go collect them, save them, help them. It's a different story if you break down there.
Yeah, it's a bit different. Being in this vessel comes with a lot of danger, but it's mostly because of how people perceive me.
Yeah.
And I think the hard thing to, and I think we're segueing a bit, I guess, but the hard thing to really come to terms with, and I think a lot of these like high profile deaths of predominantly Black men over the past 6 years, it's like a constant reminder of this. It's like, regardless of how hard your parents worked, how hard you've worked to kind of like better yourself, better your life, you can still become a victim based on someone's perception of you. And I think the perfect example of this is in the book Between the World of Me.
Yeah. Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Ta-Nehisi, he starts talking about a classmate of his, and I think Prince Jones, I think was his name. Mother was like PhD professor. He, I think, had his master's or something like that. Broke down on the side of the road. And this is like someone, it's like his mother, bought him, his mother did all these things for him to try to better his life and try to like, try to do good for her child. And then he did a lot of things to better his life. Like he, no matter like your degrees or your income or the car you drive, like being in this vessel is inherently dangerous. And so he was shot and killed by the police I think he broke down the side of the road, shot and killed by the police for someone thinking that they were breaking into their house when he was just trying to get, I don't know, like a jump or a jack or something like that. And so it's just rough because it's like you sit here and you see what happens to Michael Brown or Eric Gardner or Tamir Rice. Countless, we've got a bunch of examples. And you see what happens to these folks and you're like, oh, that can't be me. I have my master's degree at Emory University. Or that can't be me. I drive a Mercedes. Or that can't be me. I'm making $250,000 a year. And you kind of see like more and more of these examples of people who are quote unquote upstanding citizens who get a fucking knee to their neck, or, who are just kind of shot by the police because of this perception of them that, that isn't always accurate.
Is rarely accurate.
I have to live the experiences and the stereotypes of millions of other Black people. I have to inherit that. And that could lead to physical violence against me.
Yeah.
All that to say, that threat is like exponentially higher when you're in these super conservative, like insular, like neighborhoods and areas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a long way of just saying like operating this body is dangerous. And so, and Black people, especially Black men, are well aware of that.
Jameson knew it was dangerous.
I still beat him. What's funny about this, I beat him, and I don't think he ever went to nationals. I ended up going to nationals. I ended up joining the Dunwoody Fencing Club. I was
Take
fencing
that,
like 3 or 4 times a week and things like that. He was still good. But he ended up going on doing something else. I forgot what, but.
So we're sitting here at my house in Wyoming. You willingly came to Wyoming, went to Tent Sleep.
Yeah.
You didn't even tell your mom you were coming to Wyoming.
My mom would have thought I was fucking crazy.
Why continue coming to areas that make it dangerous for you to just be you in?
I mean, I'm
saying this not out of just because I know there are people listening who will bitch about whatever.
Yeah.
This is not a "you shouldn't be here" exclamation. This is, there's obviously some major love, dedication to this sport lifestyle that allows you to overlook that. Maybe not overlook, that's the wrong word. To weigh the risk and reward between the potential danger, and going climbing, and you choose going climbing. I'm curious why.
I love the travel. I think it's just it's just like this desire to kind of just see the world around me. And I don't know, I'm not really gonna let that stop me from doing what I want to do. Yeah, I think that's really it. I'm gonna do what I want to do, and if that means like not necessarily going through downtown Tent Sleep all that often, like that's all right. There's not that much there anyway, but
is there a downtown Tent Sleep? Is that a thing?
There's a downtown, like where Dirty Sally's is and all that. That's kind of downtown. They had a country music concert going on over there, and
shit,
I quickly became the show when I walked through there.
I bet.
My goodness. It's kind of you probably know this, Chris. Who's the comedian who was like, being black is dangerous, but it sure is fun as hell?
Oh boy, I don't know.
It might have been Chris Rock. I can't remember. That one's always resonated with me.
I just played some Bernie Mac for her last night, and
all right, P. Bernie Mac.
She was losing her damn mind.
All right, P. Bernie Mac. His set in The Kings of Comedy.
That's what we were watching.
Oh my god, his set was too funny. To get the milk and cookies.
Yeah, that's the part we watched.
Oh my god, too funny.
Do you feel that quote that you quoted from the comedian?
Oh hell yeah, especially when you're out in these areas like this, because as much as I'm walking past like the sheriffs and stuff like that, and like I might get some looks from them, and I realize that that's a situation that it could be kind of weird, especially when they see me get in the car, and who knows what they're thinking. 10 minutes later, when I look at the genuine befuddlement on some of these people's faces as I'm walking through downtown.
Yeah.
Like 6'1" black dude with locks and gauges in his ears and wearing like a freaking tie-dye shirt and stuff like that. I'm just walking through here just like casually. Yeah. They looked so confused.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I didn't get any like threatening looks. It wasn't like that time I was telling you about Chicago. Like it wasn't like lasers at me in like North Chicago. Like,
right.
What the fuck are you doing here? It was more just like,
you're just making them a little uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, or they're just confused. They're just confused, and that's the fun part. That's the fun part. It's funny as hell sometimes. They're like, other examples is like you said I don't sound like a Southerner, and a lot of people say I talk white, and so I'll do like a phone interview, and this is especially when after college, and I was applying to 100 different places a month, and I get a phone interview every now and again. I'd get an interview to step inside the door. So I'm talking on the phone. They're super excited to have me come in and things like that. And I walk into that room and the person I was talking on the phone with, you're like, oh, you're Brandon, and they their face quickly changes from excitement to disappointment.
Wow.
And
see, I think you look like a young Busta Rhymes, so I'm gonna hire you immediately, based entirely on that.
So part of that is like disheartening, but also part of it's kind of funny too, right? Dealing with that, or like I drive a white Subaru Forester, a 2018 white Subaru Forester, right? Like, my friends like joke like I drive like a lesbian mom car, and I get out of that car, although my tint is like illegally dark. That should be the indicator that I'm just a white dude in the car. Just kidding. I step out of the car and like, I get people look at me like confused or like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting that at all. They're expecting some like, what middle-aged white woman to walk out of the car or something like that. It's just stuff like that. That's the fun part, right?
I think on the real human level, a lot of us do respond to danger and discomfort and anxiety with humor.
Oh yeah.
Like finding the humor in the situation. I think that's a mechanism a lot of us use, and the fact that there's a comedian who can do a sketch about this and it be an understood part of the Black experience just points out how much Black people have to go through just to live their daily lives.
You have to laugh to not cry, I guess.
Yeah.
In a sense, right? I forget who said that. I'm bad at like quoting people, but it's just you kind of have to like make light of a shitty situation.
Yeah.
From time to time. And not to say that my situation or quote unquote my life was like shitty. Like I grew up privileged as fuck. Like steady income family, dual income family. My father passed away when I was young, but my mom busted her ass to make sure that we got what we wanted whenever we wanted. We're always middle income bracket, never had to worry about bills or anything like that. Like I have like an advanced degree. I work a good job now. So like I'm like I have it. I'm well off. I got this one thing here going on, this skin tone going on, but just still, there's some shit I got to deal with, and there's some shit I have to kind kind of experience from time to time, and kind of having this shared traumatic experience has been a lot to process this year, especially. I don't really know what it is about this year that really changed everything.
I don't think any of us know what about this year changed everything.
I think it's just a multitude of things.
But, you know, I've heard a lot of people recently talk about like cancel 2020, fuck 2020, whatever. And I'm more and more, I'm feeling like maybe this is the year we needed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's some important things happening right now, and let's keep that ball rolling.
I agree. There's I've never experienced so many people, and I think I said this earlier, so many people who are just willing to just listen.
Yeah.
That's never really been a thing that's happened. Like anytime that I've really brought up anything like, you know, race relations or anything related, there's usually like a lot of pushback that's involved, especially in a city like Atlanta. Because you have a lot of people try to flip it. Well, it's like, well, Atlanta's predominantly black. Well, technically, I'm a minority here, and it's just like, okay, my guy, like, who's in fucking office right now? Come on.
Yeah. I'm glad that people are, from your perspective, listening. I feel like sometimes I've created this audience because of my like sort of in your face attitude. Like I'm going to point out the excuses you're making, and that I've curated my audience to people who are willing to accept that. So people are less willing to like tell me that they're not willing to listen. So I'm glad from your perspective that you're seeing people listening.
Or at least within my own little bubble.
Yeah.
That's kind of the dangers of social media, right? Everything is very much like a vacuum in some ways.
Sure. I think we get enough little bubbles listening though.
Yeah.
And then we've got a much bigger part of the community.
Yeah. I'm really glad to see a lot more high profile athletes kind of saying something at least.
Yep. Same.
Even if it's not much, they're saying something. And more companies are starting to be a bit more outspoken. It's given me hope. But yeah, you just have to kind of keep the foot on the gas at this point, which is it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard.
And you said you're not going to let it stop you, and I'm extremely glad for that. I'm happy that's your answer. I feel like it's partly my duty at this point as somebody who has a platform, who people listen to, whether they pay attention to or not, I can't say, but I know they're at least downloading and listening to. It's part of my duty to let those people know and help direct those people into how can we make this a community that's more inclusive, more accepting, more welcoming, safer. Yeah, willing to listen and learn. And I asked this of Genevieve Walker when I met her in 10 Sleep and had a great conversation with her. And I'm going to ask you too. Something that we discussed was love language and how it's different for everybody. And if we're talking to you in a love language, what does that look like? What can this community do? How can we make it look so that it's better for you, more welcoming for you, not as unsafe? Is there anything tangible you can think of that can change?
I think part of I don't want to say part of the issue because like the demographics of a town is what it is, but I think, and like I said this earlier, I think the big hurdle is the surrounding communities of these areas where we recreate. I think if Black and brown people were to feel safer in those surrounding communities, then they would come. So as much as I want to say, you know, climbing needs to do this and climbing needs to do that, and you know, there are definitely things that the community needs to address and take care of. I think it's going to require more of a national shift or a national change in people's attitudes when it comes to race relations and how they feel about Black and brown people and things like that. I think it's got to just be a much bigger thing than that.
I'll say this, based on what you're saying, that especially in a lot of these small towns, you know, Lander, Tinsley, a lot of the small towns where there's great climbing, Fayetteville, Slade, Kentucky, the climbing community is a big part of the financial makeup of those communities.
Right.
And we can absolutely leverage that to make that sort of a difference,
right.
You know, to normalize this sort of a conversation,
right.
to normalize Black Lives Matter, to push back against Confederate flags. We have that power.
Right.
Maybe climbers didn't have that power in the 90s, but
sure
now they absolutely do.
And I was actually going to say, I think one way I think you could do that is just like normalizing more Black and brown faces in those areas, right? So if more Black and brown people are getting interested in not just like climbing in the gym, but also like getting out and traveling while doing so, right? You know, all of a sudden it's not that weird to see a Black dude like walking across the street to get some chicken wings at Sleepy Coyote at 9 p.m., you know, because he's fucking hungry, you know? All of a sudden it's not that weird because it's just like, all right, cool. Like there's, you know, hundreds of Black people that do that and travel to Tinsley to go climb.
Yeah.
But, you know, for that to happen, that introduction has to be made. And, you know, the community has to be a community that is welcoming enough to have people feel comfortable. And part of that also is just like, we got to start opening up gyms in the hood or like opening up gyms in like more diverse neighborhoods. Like First Ascent Humboldt is in, you know, it's kind of next to like one of the roughest parts of Chicago. And I've never seen so many Black and brown people in one climbing gym in my life. You know, there's like this, like there's an Indian dude in here. There's like, it's me and Justin are climbing together, like some Asian folks over here, you know. It was amazing. I was like, oh, this is crazy. This is what a lot of gyms should be looking like in most metro areas. So I would say, you know, more community outreach programs, trying to get, you know, more Black youth or Black and brown youth within climbing. You know, stop opening up gyms near a bunch of Whole Foods. Yeah. You know,
right.
Start opening up gyms in like just different neighborhoods and things like that. That's why I'm excited about this new gym called the Overlook in the Weston Atlanta. Just a relatively traditionally Black neighborhood. They're opening up over there hopefully soon. COVID's kind of slowed them down a lot, but I think that's going to help kind of bridge some gaps because all of a sudden the gym's just down the street from you. Yeah. You don't have to take a bus or ride, you know, or, you know, drive your car halfway across town to a side of town that you don't even like or don't even go to very often. Like, oh, cool. It's just like, I can practically walk there now. I think just trying to bridge that gap as best as possible. Community outreach, opening up some businesses like, you know, closer to where these people live, I think is definitely one way you can do it. And hopefully, you know, you get some people who are passionate. Hopefully you get some people who are really wanting to be a part of the community and want to label themselves as climbers because they're obsessed with it and they got obsessed with it like I did. And then, you know, from there, all of a sudden they're in frickin' Lander, Wyoming talking to Chris. Yeah. And then at that point, you know, some people's, like, you might not change people's minds, but I guess
you can at least take the gut reaction of, oh, there's a 6 foot plus Black guy running across the street at 9 p.m. That must mean something bad.
Right.
You can remove that gut reaction by normalizing it a little.
Especially in a town of 260 people,
Right.
like Tent Sleep, who I can't even imagine the last time that town has had a black person come through. Maybe like a biker or something like that.
Genevieve, a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah, true that. Yeah, that's very true. It's very true. And I'm sure they get a lot of bikers probably going through there or something. Like the reaction, like I said, the reaction wasn't a strong negative reaction, but the general befuddlement definitely gave me the perception that they're not used to seeing people like me at all.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think the climbing community in general needs to realize their power, and in these small communities, there's a lot of financial power in these festivals that we bring, to Lander, to Ten Sleep, to Rifle, to the Red, to the New, all these places.
And if these towns realize the power of the black dollar or the brown dollar, whatever you want to call it, I mean, that's just more money in their pockets.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Money is a color, or money is green. It's not black or white or anything like that,
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, it takes money to kind of like bridge that gap. But if that's the way that you have to do it, then so be it, I suppose. Anything that can just get people out there and just kind of like pursuing what they want to pursue, because everyone needs to see shit like this. Everyone needs to see like this canyon out, like Bighorn Canyon and stuff like that. Everyone needs to see shit like that. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. Everyone deserves to, if they want to, everyone deserves to feel comfortable going out in that space and just viewing at it, or climbing there, or hiking there, or swimming there. Everyone deserves that.
Yeah.
But it should be beyond money. Climbers are business owners. We work in schools. We work in the communities.
Yeah.
And if we are accepting and caring and loving and
Yep.
inclusive, and we are, making sure that our communities know that we are that way, and we expect that from others in our communities, then when someone of color shows up to get a job at the Cowfish, they're going to get hired. And
Right.
the people that they're serving or cooking for are going to, this is normal. And, it's beyond just, it should be beyond just the dollar.
Right.
100%.
Yeah, and I think we have that influence, and we just have to exercise it.
Yeah. We have to realize our power a lot more than we do.
We do.
I do think the community is still like super obsessed with keeping things kind of quote unquote underground, which is like we're
way past
we're way
that.
beyond that. Like give up that dream. Give
way
up that
past
dream.
it.
I think we still want to like still be like rebellious and kind of punk rock, I guess. But
Well, our friend Forrest just walked in,
what's
so
up, dude? Give me a hug, man. I smell bad. So.
How you been? I've seen you forever. I know.
well,
taking a break?
we're taking
Do
a
you want a popsicle?
we're wrapping it up. We're gonna eat popsicles, and we're gonna hang out with Forrest. Brandon, I appreciate you sitting down, having this conversation. I'm glad that you didn't turn out to be the I can't cry, I'm a tough guy that your dad and the coaches wanted you to be.
I cried during a lot of movies.
Me too.
Yeah, I cried in a lot of movies.
I just learned yesterday that it is really horrible to cry in a mask.
Oh,
at a
jeez.
memorial that I was at.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry about that, man.
it's terrible. But
I think
I appreciate you.
I can ask you a question.
Yeah.
What was the last movie you cried to?
Last movie I cried to?
Yeah.
I cry at sports movies.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Every sports movie. I don't remember which the last one was. 8 Seconds. I cry every time I watch 8 Seconds.
8 seconds.
You should watch it.
It's a rodeo.
You'll cry.
A rodeo movie? I told
It's not
y'all.
a rodeo movie. It's a
I told
it's
y'all I'm like a
movie
redneck deep down.
about the
so that's
human
cool.
condition.
Okay, all right. I think the last movie I cried to was I was on the flight to Paris and I watched Logan. And any father-child situation.
Oh, I do too.
Oh
lose it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't do it.
So Logan, and I'm sorry, but
I try to hide it. She always just looks over
Yeah,
at me
like,
all sly. Like, I know you're
yeah.
crying right now.
Yeah. any father-child situation, because of my experience, So Logan gets impaled by that branch and he's dying,
Mhm.
and his daughter's basically watching her dad die, and I was just like, oh fuck, like no.
Yeah,
It's like this is
man.
trauma, no. And I'm on this plane, just like, oh no.
Dude.
yeah, dude.
I'm always like, no, like, are you okay?
I was like, no, I'm fine. It's just this movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me
man.
sober. Thanks for the tacos.
I'm sure all of you have heard me say this hundreds of times at this point, but I fucking love sitting across from someone, getting to see their emotions on their face, getting to have these in-depth conversations, to get to know someone deeper than just on the surface. So often at the Crag, we just get to know people on the surface. We have this small talk, this little chatter. These conversations go so much deeper than that, and I appreciate the people who sit across from me and let me dig into their lives the way that they do. I especially appreciate when they have a different perspective than I do, and they can teach me about their perspective, which ultimately makes me a better podcast host, a better person, a better partner, a better coach. So Brandon, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I'm really looking forward to the next time we get to climb together, hopefully on some southern boulders. I'll see you out there. If not, I'll see you here. You all can learn more about Brandon on his Instagram at Mr. Big Strings. There's also a link for that right there in your show notes. Don't forget about the trivia game. The link is in your show notes. We'll be supporting We Climb out of Chattanooga. Really looking forward to seeing what this group does in the future and being a small part of helping it grow. You know where to find us, powercompanyclimbing.com. This is going to be a big winner for us. Check us out on there. Keep your eyes peeled on that website, on the Instagrams, on the Facebooks at Power Company Climbing, and keep your eyes peeled on the Twitter. You won't see us there because we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
This time to build power. 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 This time to build. 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 This time.
You don't have to be quiet. Let me just say this before you ask your question. Pretty much the same thing we did with Genevieve,
No, I hate asking questions.
but you love it actually. So, yeah. So ask your question.
I just really want it. It's so fun to watch you climb because you're an athlete. You're graceful. You're dynamic. So, but and you talked about, and I don't remember the name you called it, the fencing you used to do. But what have you done? What kind of athlete have you been? How do you control your body like that?
How do you control your body like that?
How?
Let's it's weird, like, cause when I was younger, I was really scrawny kid, like really scrawny, but I used to ride my bike all the time. That was pretty much my only